Hello everyone, it's Jeff again. I'm wearing the same shirt as my last video because I'm making two videos in one day. So, yeah, I'm a busy guy today. I wanted to make this contest entry video last week, but I didn't have time because it's going to be slightly more involved than just sitting here and talking about records. We're actually going to be going on a field trip. I'm going to be carrying this camera around. It's on a tripod as I shoot this. And I'm hoping I can do it right and see what I'm aiming at, because there's things that I can't move that I have to show you. So, the theme of this video is, like I said, a contest entry for Ron Haggerty's 500 subs contest. Congratulations, Ron. I've been lurking on your channel for quite a while now, and I enjoy you and your videos, even though I'm not, I'm not a metal guy. I've said this before to other people. Even if I'm not into the music as much as the person, it's usually, I watch a lot of their videos anyway because I just like the person. So you're one of those people, and I'm a lightweight metal guy, but still, I kind of like metal. So the theme of the contest, just for those who don't know, is tied into the 500. Number 5 is you have to show 5 categories of things, whatever they are. I've come up with 5 different things or categories, and show 5 examples in that category. It's not going to have anything to do with records, because my channel is primarily devoted to records and music, so none of this is going to be music related. And this was the reason why I wanted to enter this contest, because it gives me a good excuse to show some of the other things that I collect or am into, and that aren't music related. So, all that said, let me just preface this. I've said this in my other videos, I think, a few times before, but comics is and was my primary collecting thing. I've been reading and collecting comics for 42 years, going on 43 years, so just about my entire life I've been a comic book fan of some sort. In fact, I just saw the Black Panther movie over the weekend with my wife, and it was good. I liked it, but I'm not going to get sidetracked into it. I'm hugely happy with the inroads that comics have made into the mainstream pop culture. If I was a kid now, with all of the movies and toys and other things that are available, I would just go crazy, because when I was a little kid, we didn't have any of this. I mean, we had, Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk, Adam West Batman. Fine shows. They were good for what they were, but yeah. There is an abundance of cool things out, much cooler than was out in the late 70s and 80s. Anyway, I'm going to start my 5 categories first. Besides comics, I've also been, this is leading into the first category, I've been reading Stephen King since 1979, when I was in 4th grade. I remember the Salem's Lot movie on TV with David Soul, who I knew as Hutch from Starsky and Hutch. Was on TV, and it was, you all know what Salem's Lot is about, I think, at this point. A small town in Maine getting taken over by vampires. And to my little 4th grade brain, it just scared the crap out of me. Looking at it now, it's kind of laughable, but I still have a soft spot in my heart for that movie, because that's kind of what led me into reading Stephen King. So this is the original paperback that I got of Salem's Lot, and you can see how beat up it is. This is kind of in delicate shape. It's still in one piece, but you know, it's just it just sits on the shelf now. This is, I wouldn't probably read this copy again, and would probably fall apart in my hands, being a paperback. So I ended up getting a hardcover edition much later. This is not an original first edition, but I wanted to have this in hardcover. So this is my first of the 5 favorite Stephen King books. Easily would be Salem's Lot above all others. I've read this, geez, I can't count how many times I've read this book, and probably before I die, I'm going to read it at least 1 or 2 more times. So it's that good to me. So that's the first. The second, coming in at a close second, is The Stand. Now, this was my paperback that I bought. This was the edited version. It was only, what, 800 and some pages long? 815 pages long for a book. And then I went back when the unedited version came out, which is over 1,100 pages, and read that. So this is, I've read this, well, it's a lot longer than Salem's Lot, but I've read this several times as well. Chances are pretty good I'll probably tackle it at least one more time in my lifetime. The Stand by Stephen King, that's number 2. Third is this one. This is one of his newer books, 11/22/63. This is a story about a guy who discovers a doorway that takes him back in time. Takes him back actually to 1958. And the guy lives in the past for 5 years, leading up to try to prevent the Kennedy assassination. So this is really where King got his mojo back for me. I mean, there have been many years where he was writing just kind of so-so books, or even just downright bad ones. But this one here, here's the back. This one here brought him back to the fore in my enjoyment, and really, since then he's kind of hit his stride once again. He writes a little more concisely, slightly shorter books, and they're a lot more fun to read. So this one brought me back to being a full-time King fan. 11/22/63. This is number 3. And then this is the Dark Tower. This is the first book of the Dark Tower, but this represents, you know, the whole series. I don't love the whole 7-book series. Basically, the first 4 books are where the best work is, and the last 3 kind of, they're okay. I didn't like the way this ended. This actually led me to swear King off for a couple of years because I was so pissed off at the way he ended this thing. But reading the beginning, you know, the first, you know, I'd say 3-4 books really recaptures the glory of the story as far as I'm concerned. So this is number 4. And 5th is The Shining. This was my paperback copy. I think I read, when did I read this? In like the early 80s, probably 7th, when I was in 6th or 7th grade, I read The Shining. So, yeah, this is a classic. I recently rewatched the movie, the original movie with Jack Nicholson. My kids actually liked it. My daughter tried reading this, but I don't think she's quite old enough yet. But yeah, what can I say? I was kind of twisted. I got exposed to King at a young age, and so I don't have all of his books. There's a few that I'm missing. I'm not like a hardcore collector. There's actually a few I have that I haven't read yet. I'm kind of like saving them for I don't know, a rainy day or something. But that's the first category, my 5 favorite Stephen King books. Now, all of my individual comics are in storage. Otherwise, I would have pulled 5 of those and shown you that. And I'll probably do that in a future video. I just need to go to my storage unit and dig through them because I've got a ton of comics that are worthy, that are probably video worthy. But all of my collected editions, my hardcovers, are still here at home. So I've broken it down into Marvel and DC because they're the 2 biggest comic publishers. I mean, they're not necessarily always the best, but I've been a Marvel kid ever since the beginning. So I've broken the next 2 categories down into my 5 favorite Marvel and my 5 favorite DC hardcover collections. Starting with Marvel, this is Marvel Masterworks series is hardcover, reprinted, remastered editions of comic books from decades gone by. So this one here is Warlock. This came out in the 70s, and Warlock is pretty similar to like the Elric story. This gem you see on his forehead, Steel Souls, which is kind of like how Stormbringer worked for Elric. If any of you guys know what I'm talking about. You may or may not, I don't know. But this is my this is a great storyline, and the entire 70s run is all in one book, which is why I bought it. I've got all the originals, but what I did for a lot of these is I rebought them as hardcovers just to be able to have it in one package and be able to take it down and read it. And it's a little more durable than pulling out 45-plus-year-old comic books that you may sometimes have to be delicate with. The second one is also a Masterworks. This is Uncanny X-Men Volume 5. And this one contains the Dark Phoenix saga by Chris Claremont and John Byrne. I'm getting a lot of glare on these because I have book covers over these. It's like clear plastic to protect the dust jacket. So I'm kind of holding these at an angle so I don't get a ton of glare. But this is number 2 out of my favorite Marvel hardcovers. This is a classic storyline. Any hardcore Marvel fan will tell you or rank this very highly. The Dark Phoenix saga. And then number 3 is, this is Fantastic Four, Volume 5, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. This book contains what's called the Galactus Trilogy. It was probably one of the most famous, if not the most famous, storyline in all of comics, really. Certainly for the Fantastic Four. It's where the Silver Surfer was introduced. Of course, Galactus, and it was just one of the first really, truly, honestly epic storylines in comic books. And the next 2 are even heavier. They're omnibus editions, which means they're even thicker and bigger than Masterworks. This one here is the Captain America by Jack Kirby omnibus. This collects the entire run that Jack Kirby did in the 70s when he returned to Marvel, and he went back to the character he co-created. He co-created Captain America with Joe Simon. So this is where it all started for me. When I was a little kid, going to the Osco drugstore in 1976, I saw. Let's see if I can find the cover quickly here. It was a comic book by Jack Kirby. This one here. Captain America 204 is kind of what I consider the comic that lured me in and made me a fan, because I love the artwork, and it was, you know, it's an adventure story, and it seemed like it was geared right for me and I wanted to see what happened next month. So it's what started my my obsession and enjoyment with the comic book form, I guess you can call it. So this is my number 4 of Marvel hardcover collected editions, the Captain America Omnibus. To go with that, at the same time, this is also an omnibus. This is the Eternals. This was another series that Jack Kirby did in the late 70s. And alongside with Captain America, I saw these on the shelf. And looking at these wonderful covers just grabbed me, you know, as a kid. So just like with Captain America and this, I've got the originals, but I rebought them to be able to read them, you know, in one book that's more durable, printed on better paper, and has, you know, higher production values than the crappy newsprint that they used back in the 70s. So I love it too. Don't get me wrong, but you know, you have to really handle those comics a little bit delicately as they age. So this is my 5th one for Marvel. Okay, now we move to DC. I'm kind of cheating with this one, but it's just because I want to show this book off because it's really awesome. Even though this was put out by a different company, by IDW, The New Gods was also a series by Jack Kirby when he left Marvel in the 60s. Went to DC in the 70s, early 70s, and started his own line of comics called the Fourth World, which comprised of 3 titles, and The New Gods was one of them. This book here is called the Artist's Edition, and it doesn't reprint the entire story, but it does reprint some of the issues from the original artwork. And it's in black and white, so it's just as if Kirby had just drawn them and we get to see. So I'm just showing you some examples here. It has all the corrections, it has all the whiteout, it has all of the editorial comments and marks on them. So these are kind of high-priced books, I'll admit, but I'm such a Kirby fan that I couldn't not get them. So I'm looking at my shelf behind me. I've got like 5 or 6 more of these. And yeah, this was a DC series that was hugely underrated. Didn't last very long, but boy, oh boy, was it a great story. Oh, and they're heavy too. My goodness. The second one from DC is the Green, let me start it from here, the Green Lantern, Green Arrow collection by Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams, another one of my favorite artists. Here's the book out of the slipcase, and this one here I got signed by Neil Adams right here. So this was a famous run of comics that came out in the 70s, and Neil Adams is one of the all-time greatest artists in comics ever. I mean, the work he did just really, he was like one of the first guys to really make costumes look like they fit on the human body. You know, you could see details. It didn't look like it was just a, you know, cardboard cutout standing there. These guys looked like humans. They reacted, and his action shots were just unbelievable. When you think of the time, if you look at it in context, which is kind of what I like to do with music, if you look at his stuff in context with other material that was out in this at the same time, he was miles ahead of everybody else. So this is easily one of my favorite DC collections, the Green Lantern, Green Arrow series. Got nowhere to put these things. And then moving into the 80s, we have the Watchmen series. This is a giant hardcover book called Absolute Watchmen. The Absolute Editions is supposed to be the highest quality production values for these comics that are available. So it's got this here, and this collects the entire 12-issue Watchmen series. Just show you a little bit. It's printed on really nice paper. And if you've seen the Watchmen movie but haven't read the comic series, do yourself a favor and read the comics, because Alan Moore in the 80s and even beyond was and is one of the greatest writers in all of comics as far as I'm concerned. And Watchmen has got to be one of his greatest achievements. So while I thought the movie kind of captured the look of the comic, no movie can really capture completely what you can do in a comic book. So while I like the movie, I think this is much better. And this is one of those things where I've read it several times in my life. I'm probably going to read it a couple more times before I go. So yeah, this had to be on my list. This was number 3. Number 4 is The Absolute Sandman by Neil Gaiman. This is volume 1. Sorry, I think I held that upside down. And these are made to look like, you know, those old leather-bound classics. You know, this was a 4-volume set. This is just the first volume, just to represent the set. But just like with Watchmen, you know, these are remastered and very nice paper. And I've got this whole series as well as originals, but like I said, it's just a lot easier to read a stretch of them at a time. You kind of like binge read a bunch of these. It's easier to do it in books like this. So this was number 4. Sandman is a classic series. Neil Gaiman is also one of my favorite writers. Oh, if my coffee table doesn't collapse from all these heavy books. And number 5, right here, is The Absolute Dark Knight by Frank Miller. This came out roughly the same time as Watchmen in 1986. And and this is another seminal Batman series. This pretty much redesigned the character after it came out for decades. Even now, it's still, you can still see the influence that Frank Miller had with Batman on this. This is another one. Great classic series. It's timeless. Miller was actually paying attention to what he was drawing. He's a pretty sloppy artist, but for this, he put a lot of effort into it. You can tell, because the artwork is really good. I like Frank Miller's art up to a certain point. So yeah, this is another classic here out of my favorite DC hardcover collections. Okay, those are 3 categories. Now the next 2, I'm gonna have to get up and move around. So I'm gonna see if I can carry this tripod with me and show you the next category, which is favorite. This poster that you've seen behind me probably in my other videos is by a guy called Barry Smith. And, or as he changed his name to Barry Windsor Smith. He was a comic book artist. He started off in the late 60s, early 70s, drawing Conan the Barbarian. I think Andy from Andy's Vinyl Den posted a picture on Facebook of he got Conan #1, which congratulations on that. But also in the 70s, Barry Smith released a series of prints and posters, and these are autographed. You can buy them. This is called the Devil's Lake. And this was one of those things that I had for years, and I never got around to framing it until recently. So yeah, this next category is my favorite Barry Smith prints. And I've got several of them. Like this one here. This is, he did a set of Conan prints. Andy, if you're watching this. This is the first plate of the set, autographed here, and it's number 72 out of 1,000. So it's assigned and numbered. That's number 2. And then up here is my third one. It's another plate from that Conan set. And I don't know if you can see the details, and that, like, you can see almost every blade of grass. It looks like he drew every single blade. So that's number 3. Then over here is, set this down. This is another set that he did on in the 70s. This is called Sibylla, and it's signed and numbered there. Number 522 out of 1,500. This one currently doesn't have a home, but someday it will, once again. And this last one, see, we're going on a field trip here today. This last one here is of, oh, there's a lot of glare. Jeez, sorry about that. This is his version of Icarus, this is him after he crash landed with his wings. Sorry there's a lot of glare, but I think you can still make out the picture. So that's the 5th out of 5. As you can see, I've got a lot of Barry Smith. No, is that 5 or is that 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, I got one more to show you. Okay. We got to go downstairs for that one. So I hope this doesn't make you guys seasick. But this one here we go. This one here is called, what's it called? Withering. This one's called Withering. And as you can see, it's got a creepy undertone right there. So yeah, that's my favorite Barry Smith prints that I've got hanging around my house. And let's see, that's how many categories is that? 4. The 5th one is going to be other comic-related things that I've got on my walls around the house that aren't by Barry Smith, like this one. Man, there's a lot of glare. This one here is the color separations for a comic book cover. This was by Jack Kirby. It's the Demon number 13. And these were the actual color separations used in production for the cover. So what I did was I had, and all of these are in separate, they're all separate pages. They were kind of bound together in a book. And what I did was I took it and got it framed, and the guy arranged them in such a way as to make them look as if they're all kind of like coming together, you know, from each side to form the color version right that you see right there, the final product. Sorry if you can't see this, I'm trying to look at the side here. But I think this is pretty cool. So that's the first one. Now we're going back upstairs to show you my other Kirby print. This is the 50th anniversary of Captain America Jack Kirby print that was produced in the early 90s. Actually, I think this was put out right before Jack's death. I think it was 92 or 93. I'm not sure. But let me see if I can zoom in there. You can see that it is signed by Jack Kirby. And it is numbered. And this was a gift for my wife when we got married. She got this for me. And she had it framed and it's wonderful. It's one of my favorites. I will probably always have this hanging somewhere in my house, wherever I live from here on out. Okay, that's 2. Now we're going upstairs to show you yet another. This one's going to be tough because this is a gigantic poster by Alex Ross. Let's see if I can get it all in there. This is of Crisis on Infinite Earths series that was put out by DC. And when it was re-released in the early 2000s, let's see, there we go, now we're getting it. This poster was offered because Alex Ross redrew the cover with George Perez. And it was released as a giant poster, and I got it framed. So this is hanging right outside my bedroom. And this one here is also an Alex Ross related one. It's the Mighty Marvel Heroes and Villains by John Romita Sr. and Alex Ross. So this is across from the Crisis poster, also very nicely framed. And moving down the hall, hopefully this will show. This is the Marvel Universe Classic 70s by Alex Ross. So these are all of the Marvel heroes that were created or became popular in the 70s. See if I can get closer to it here. So yeah, I've got a bunch of Alex Ross posters that are framed as well. His stuff looks really well nice when it's framed. So there you go. Okay. Geez, this video is 32 minutes. If you've made it this far, congratulations. It's probably going to take me forever to upload this thing, so we'll see how it goes. So let me just once again quickly offer my congratulations to Ron for hitting 500 subs, and hope this entry is acceptable for your contest. And yeah, hope I win. Good luck to everyone though. All in good fun. All right, I will talk to you guys later. This is Jeff. Peace out.